Welcome to Divine Justice. In order not to miss the videos prepared by our team, including the latest developments and special reports on the war in Israel, you can subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and click the super thanks button below. Israel has now begun its latest hardline offensive against Hamas activities in the Gaza Strip. As of now, dozens of infantry brigades from the Israeli army's ground forces are on standby just a few kilometers from the Gaza border, and some special purpose units are conducting covert operations along the northern border and inside Gaza. As war bells ring out, hundreds of Israeli Merkava tanks, M113 armored infantry vehicles, and M109 Paladin howitzers began partial shelling of Hamas positions today. The Israeli Air Force's AH-64 Apache attack helicopters and fighter jets flew hundreds of sorties into Gaza during the day, while Israeli reconnaissance and attack drones also supported the offensive with target designation. There have been interactions between Hamas and the Israeli army today, and the Israeli army is opening a breach from the north to break through Hamas positions. Let's go now to all the fiery moments of the current situation and operations of the Israeli army on Israel's southern front today. After Hamas held more than 220 civilians hostage and killed more than 1,400 Israelis, the IDF announced the start of localized incursions in northern Gaza. Clashes between the IDF and Hamas were reported in the border area between Beit Hanun and Erez. It is known that the IDF has 300 tanks and armored vehicles on the border of Gaza City supporting these critical clashes. In addition to the Israeli army's 360,000 troops on the Gaza border, the IDF's special forces are also involved in the ground offensive operations. Also in the Gaza airspace, Israel's Heron reconnaissance drones and Hermes attack drones continue to work to detect and destroy Hamas elements in the city. A squadron of Israeli Air Force fighter jets also continues to fly in support of this ground operation. In other words, the IDF is currently mobilizing all its means to enter Gaza by land. In fact, Israel announced the start of the ground offensive operations in the clearest way possible. Before the local entries began, IDF Chief of Staff Herzl Halevi announced that Israel would enter Gaza. Following this announcement, the IDF gave the clearest signal that all preparations were complete and that it would begin operations to wipe out the Hamas militants from Gaza. Following these preparations, Israel launched limited ground attacks and surprise raids against Hamas militants in Gaza overnight, and today the IDF launched heavy airstrikes against Gaza simultaneously with the ground attacks. Hamas claimed that it clashed with IDF armored units after Israeli special forces entered Gaza. During this clash, Hamas militants allegedly launched 2 drones east of Khan Yunis, but these drones were destroyed by Israeli air defense systems. Following these clashes, Israel's chief military spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said in a briefing that raids by the army's tank and infantry forces continued throughout the night. As a result of the strikes deep into Gaza, more than 320 Hamas targets are being destroyed daily. Israeli bunker buster bombs and high-tech Merkava tanks, including the Russian-made Kornet anti-tank missiles, continued artillery strikes against a wide range of deep tunnels and booby traps. While these operations continued also today, the blockaded Gaza Strip was rocked by one of the deadliest nights of Israeli shelling so far in the war against Hamas. The bombardment of the Jabalia refugee camp and the streets of Gaza City killed 70 Hamas sympathizers. Following these heavy losses, the Hamas group's attempts to launch counterattacks against Israel have slowed down. Important assessments continued to come from Israel in the context of the ground operation. Senior Israeli commanders are increasingly referring to preparations for a ground operation. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that the expected ground operation in Gaza should be the last one for the simple reason that Hamas will no longer exist. The IDF also warned residents that future attacks will be more intense against Hamas elements in Gaza. Most recently, the IDF reiterated its warnings that civilians in Gaza would move to the southern part of the enclave in a spiral of humanitarian crisis. While the situation in Gaza and southern Israel seems to have settled into a pattern of deadly airstrikes, clashes still threaten to spread to northern Israel. The United Nations International Organization for Migration recently reported that the cross-border exchange of fire between Israel and the Lebanese group Hezbollah along the blue line separating the two countries has escalated, causing some 20,000 people to flee their villages in southern Lebanon. The IDF was also working on this issue. The Israeli Defense Ministry ordered the evacuation of the border town of Kiryat Shmona, home to some 25,000 people, as the border area came under fire from Hezbollah and fighters allied with Hamas. As storms continued to rage in the clash zone, both north and south, the international political and diplomatic arena was also in a critical state regarding the war in the Middle East. The Cairo Conference on Gaza ended without an agreed statement after Arab countries refused to condemn Hamas and recognize Israel's right to self-defense. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulidis, who attended the Cairo conference, left for Israel after the meeting. Meanwhile, Israeli media reported that the United States and Qatar are trying to broker a deal to release 50 foreign or dual nationals held by Hamas and other groups in Gaza. It has also emerged that the United States is pressuring Israel to postpone its expected ground assault on Gaza to allow time for the release of more hostages believed to be held in Gaza and to allow more aid to reach the besieged territory. In this regard, Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu stated that he was delaying the landing of the boats while there was a possibility of returning the hostages, and that the Israeli offensive had not yet exhausted the airstrikes. However, it was also signaled that the IDF's ground operation would continue with limited localized incursions. Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly stated that the IDF will conduct a full-scale ground offensive until Hamas is completely destroyed. To this end, the Israeli Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the IDF Chief of Staff are working in close and full cooperation. At the same time, Israel is allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza. Most recently, a third aid convoy of 20 trucks entered Gaza through the Rafah border crossing with Egypt after being checked by Israeli authorities. Before that, 14 other trucks were reported to have crossed the border. In total, 54 aid trucks are known to have entered Gaza. The IDF was both continuing its ground attacks locally and ensuring that humanitarian aid reached the residents of Gaza affected by Hamas. After all this, the question was how long Israel's ground attacks on Gaza would last and what kind of a process the war would drag on. In this regard, Defense Chief Yoav Gallant reported that the upcoming ground offensive in the Gaza Strip would take months to eliminate Hamas. This is because Hamas constantly resupplies itself with ammunition through the kilometers of tunnels that run underground in the city. This is why the IDF's interception operations against Hamas are protracted. But no ammunition is limited. One day, Hamas will run out of ammunition and will be trapped in its tunnel lines in the Gaza Strip. Thank you for watching us. We work day and night to bring you the fastest and most reliable news. In order not to miss the videos prepared by our team, including the latest developments and special reports on the war in Israel, you can subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and click the super thanks button below. See you in our next work.